Happy Thursday, everybody. This is Crypto and Coffee with the Trading Bros. I'm your host, Clutch Crypto. We got B. Wellington on the charts. Not a whole
What's
lot
going
of
on?
not a whole lot of activity since yesterday's show. It's kind of a boring Monday for a Monday, but we do have some. We do have the Fed talking today at 2 p.m. So let's look into the charts and see what we can anticipate until then, and maybe even have a really good guess on what's going to happen after the Fed talks. B. Wellington, what you got on the charts?
So this is the daily. We've been looking at it. We had this big drop to the downside. So this wick is here. This is an imbalance in the chart, so we got to be careful about that. We're starting to push up to the upside. We had this green candle here on the daily after some consecutive red candles, so that's positive. So we had two green candles, positive candles in a row. Even though this one, was very thin, looks like a kind of a volume, not a volume, but a directional change as far as the candle is concerned. And here we are developing this other candle here 10 hours ago on that one. But we are up on the 800 on the daily, and so at least on ETH USD, came up, we touched it, rejected off of it, and now it looks like we may be heading down, even though this just turned green. So we're very close relative to this candle from a balance standpoint. But it does appear that early on in the session we were getting some positive feedback. But with the Fed speaking at 2 o'clock, who knows? This could be a run up to some of that information, and then draw down after it. What they say about the news, right? Buy the rumor, sell the actual news. So we'll see what those comments look like. If we drop down to the hourly, just from an intraday's perspective, we've got this peak here, which aligns up with the 200 EMA on the
Hourly
1
chart.
hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's 2163. So I would be careful. We may get up to yesterday's high. That's where I would see a lot of liquidity or sitting liquidity at. Just because yesterday's high, there may be some folks that went long in this area. They're looking to get out of that long once they get there. You also could look at this as a head and shoulder pattern. So we have this here, and then if this comes up and eclipse kind of that 2143, it's going to be close, but this could be forming what you would say would be a head and shoulders, an M formation. So I do anticipate that even if we get up into this area, if we don't break this area with clear conviction, it will probably come down. We still have this kind of this W formation that's down here. This is the wick that we had talked about earlier. So if we get into this area, potentially you could see a W formation. I mean, it would look like, we've got an M, not a very big M, but maybe just something to shake off the folks that were going to go short based upon this formation here. We're going to shake that out. We've ranged here and then possibly move down to the downside. Personally, just my opinion, I think we'll head to the downside, but not, but we may come back up into this area, 2157. So, like I said, if we break out of here, my next area of interest would be kind of that 800 EMA or this peak right here, which is 2456. But we'll see when we get there. Just kind of going on to smaller time frames, same story. We're early on into the session. Again, kind of moving up into this area is what we're looking at. So we should see a lot of activity within this area. We do have some news coming out today as well before the Fed speaks, but we'll kind of see it. But look at yesterday's high as a point where of interest to see what we do when we hit this 800 in this yesterday's high.
And we're also still nice above the daily open as well.
Yeah, and we are above the daily open, so we got to be careful of that. It does like to come back down into those daily opens, but we'll just have to look at that. So look at this area as a point of interest. We do have OI that we take a look at. We're at $4.7 billion, which is it's pretty low from what we've seen in the past. I don't know why this is a totally loaded up, but yeah. So here we go. So as price has gone up, OI has gone up, as well. So, we'll have to see whether or not these are longs or shorts, but I would imagine that these are longs coming off of oh, wait, 5.1 billion. So we built, I refreshed this morning.
Yeah.
So we've built quite a bit in a very short period of time. I think people are starting
People are starting to believe.
Let's look at the funding rate. I mean, we did get our text from the group this morning, and normally when we get our text from the groups in the morning, that means that they're starting to get antsy relative to the longs. Just overall sentiment wise, looks like most of the exchanges are long. If you look at overall aggregated, things are positive on that end, but it's a mixed bag. Not to say that this means that people are long or short, but this does give somewhat of sentiment in the market. And if we then further take a look at things like exo charts, we are at the POC for exo charts, or at least a little bit above it. So, we'll just have to see how that continues to go, but we are right in the middle of the range. If we look at the Bybit, we've got longs that have increased, we've got shorts that have decreased. And so if we were to kind of extrapolate this with what we've seen on the OI, I would imagine that this is a longs are starting to build. And looking at, the market itself, we are open. Let's see if this gives me a nice walk. So market's up early, which, we we kind of see when the market tends to flush up early and quickly. By the end of the day, we kind of see some downside, and with the news that's coming out, I would just be careful. Having extended runs at this point in time hasn't been the tendencies of the market. News-wise, like I mentioned, we've got Fed Powell. I think everybody's waiting on this, interviewed, and kind of see what his thoughts are relative to how he thinks these latest cuts have affected the market and affected inflation. But we got retail sales that have come out a little lower than expected. Retail sales excluding vehicles. So vehicles, they're trying to say vehicles have been the kind of the limiter of the some of the sales. So overall, if you exclude vehicles, the retail sales are up. Industrial production index, this is positive, 1.1 versus 0.5. Capacity utilization is up. So anytime you're using capacity, these are positive. So I would say this is kind of these are positive signs here relative to the economy, retail sales, things of that nature, which could be responsible for the early pump. And then we've got home builders index coming out, and then of course tomorrow and the next day, housing, and then jobless claims. So that's really all I have at this point in time. So we're pumping. I don't know if it's going to last, but I still say by the end of this week we'll be lower than where we're at. But we'll see how that works out and see how long it takes in order to regain that wick.
Let's see
what you got, man.
See what it's going to do. Okay, cool. So let me refresh this real quick. I just ran it a while ago. It shouldn't take too long. Can you see this?
I can see.
So as we mentioned, we did start pumping. We're up into the positive $1 billion range on the Binance chart for Ethereum right now for liquidation levels. As you can see, we've been slowly collecting a whole bunch of long liquidations below us while we're eating through the short liquidations above us. We do have a significant $6.6 million liquidation still up here around, it's $30 million. Around 2189. I do anticipate that we'll probably get up there into that range. That also is pretty much in correlation with what B. Wellington was talking about as a peak, where we wouldn't be breaking a new high and not releasing those other guys that are trapped right now. There's a cluster of orders right down here, right around 2000. So I would pay attention to that. That looks kind of tricky to me, where we got quite a few 50 and 100x liquidations clustered together. So I would definitely pay attention to $2,000 range, and then of course a new low below 1982 would indicate that we may continue some more downside action. As far as right now, on the upside, let's pay attention to 2189, what happens when we get into that range, and see if we get rejected out of that range. And again, I've been saying this for almost a week and a half now, we still have a gap that hasn't been closed at 2680. So do pay attention to that and see what happens when we get into that range. Hold on one second. And then, so let me say bookmap over here. Slide you over here. So as you can see right now, we have positive CBD 14,000. We've been kind of ranging in here. We came down, hit the VWAP right here on the 2180. We got into those orders pretty quickly, got rejected. This all happened right before New York Open. We got a nice bounce, and we come up here, peaked up around 2120 area. We're working our way back down. We have some pretty heavy resistance here at 2100. Again, 2000, the other area that I was talking about paying attention to. And when you see these big red dots with, you know, longs and shorts being absorbed in here, I'm pretty sure we're probably going to come back and retest this BU up here very quickly. As you can see, we're still somewhat neutral on the order book, but we're testing this 2100 range right now. And then for significant order clusters, 2180. Again, we talked about 2180 3 times this morning on the show, looking at different charts. So 2180 is a very important number, I think, today. So pay attention to 2180 if we get into that range and what's going to happen. I think, I mean, honestly, I kind of expect possibly another day like yesterday until probably the Fed speaks a little later today at 2 p.m. I expect just some ranging. There's definitely some uncertainty, but as we saw in the news, there is some positive news that's come out. There's people that are buying. There's people that are buying right now. We got OI that's up as well. We're trying to get this baby turned around to head to the upside. You know, can we do it? Will it happen? You know, we're just going to have to pay attention to, and as always, pay attention to the key areas that, you know, we discussed in the show. And be careful on your trades and don't get in a trap. That's all I got.
Yeah, that's all I have as well. So, you know, it's Tuesday. Be careful out there. We'll have to see what happens, but just be careful of where the liquidity's at, kind of where the key areas that we talked about. See how I respond in those areas, and I'll tell you all you need to know.
All right, we'll see you guys tomorrow, same time, same place. Until then, AMF.
Adios, mothers of beauty.